honor the part of you that wants freedom, right? So the rebellion itself, that energy is like a good energy, right? That message that is coming up and being like, I'm feeling an edginess that's arising, right? I'm feeling an edginess that's coming up. Something feels like it's rising in me. That's good. You don't need to be afraid of that. You don't need to release that valve with food, as we're saying, right? You don't need to be afraid of it, right? We're going to transmute that energy into something that's going to make you feel more connected to yourself. And that's going to look like small shifts, right? Things like choosing food you actually want, not what you should eat. I was having a conversation with someone in our coaching call this past week, and she was talking about how she has and it was so amazing because it's so beautiful. The women here in the mentorship have these great awarenesses, and they're so smart. So it's really such a fun environment. But she was saying how she recognized that in her eating habit, she's attached to timing. Like she's attached to the time she has to eat in a day. And so she has anxiety around the time that she has to eat in the day. So, she feels like she's married to these like times to have lunch and time to have dinner. And then if she gets hungry before, like wants to eat something before the time, then it stresses her out because it makes her feel like, she doesn't know what to do because what is she going to do with the time? So there's all of this externally outsourced agency. And it's exactly what we're talking about here. So she shares that what happens is like when she tries to abide by the timing, she ends up at night secretly eating the stuff that the stuff that she really, like in more volume, the quote unquote, like indulgent stuff that she fully could have had all day, but she didn't because she followed these rules of timing and felt like she didn't have permission to follow her natural rhythm. Right. So later in the day, she rebelled against the rules with eating. Right. So this is exactly what we're talking about. Right. So it's choosing food that you actually want, not what you should eat. It's choosing to eat when you want, not some idea of what time. Right. I eat at different times every day. Sometimes I'm hungry at 9:30 in the morning. Sometimes I'm not hungry at 9:30 in the morning. It's like, you eat when, you eat, the rhythm needs to become more of a flow. But to get worried about some external force dictating when you should eat and then shaming yourself when you eat outside of those time frames, and then later in the day eating more stuff that you don't even necessarily want only to rebel, that's not where we want to be. And then getting yourself into a space with your emotions, with your nervous system, where you prioritize your energy. So that might mean saying no to plans when you're exhausted. A lot of times when we say yes when we mean no, we end up rebelling with food. And also, you don't need to over-explain yourself because that's a lot of energy also. So a lot of times food is an act of rebellion and an act of replenishment for energy that we've given to others because we aren't comfortable in our own nervous system to prioritize ourselves first. Okay. And so you don't owe people a 10-minute explanation. Okay. So that's that too. Another small shift can be setting boundaries around, like I said, like around your meals, around your energy. allowing yourself to eat something indulgent or have pleasure in your day on purpose, right? Like actually planning ahead to give yourself something pleasuring. It could be food, it could not be food. And then also allowing yourself not to be perfect. So the example I told you before about the woman with who was struggling with what time to eat, there was a lot of perfectionism there. There was a lot of like, this is the right, this is the wrong. Right? Like, what do I do? You know, it's like, what do I do if I did it wrong? But there's no doing it wrong. Right? You're allowed to eat when you want to eat, right? Without having to rebel to get it. You're allowed to eat what you want as well. And eating what you want doesn't mean you overeat what you want. Okay. And so that is another skill that, you know, we're not talking about this today. It's something that I do teach in the mentorship is how do you get to that place where you eat what you want, but that doesn't trigger that switch to overeat. Because you need to learn how to do that so that you can eat whatever you want. Because we're not in the intuitive eating philosophy here where you just eat what you want when you want, right? That's not it. Right? You do it on purpose, right? You do it in a responsible way because you know yourself and you've created boundaries with yourself that don't feel like restrictions. Okay. And when you start to do this, you're going to realize and you're going to feel in your body your true power. Right? You're going to feel your true power because you're exerting it in how you're moving through the world and the decisions you're making and the choices you're making in the, you know, in the compassionate limitations that you're putting on yourself, in the way that you're learning how to communicate and use words to express. And once you start to have these other tools, you're not going to need food to be your language.